will be going really fast. I'll try as much as possible to go more into detail because it's really important that, especially for some of us who are just doing this for the first time, to have a clear understanding, an in-depth foundation understanding before we go deeper. Yeah. Okay. Let me see how I can minimize this. Brilliant. So today we'll be talking about a politically exposed person. Yeah. PEP. That's what a PEP stands for. There's been a law. I know some of you might have heard that terminology. What is a PEP? What does it stand for? Why do we need to understand what a PEP is? Yesterday we talked about the 4 risk factor of KYC. Yeah. We talk about a customer risk. We talk about a product risk. We talk about geographical risk, and we also talk about delivery and channel. As part of customer risk, in knowing the customer, who the customer is by their nature, political exposed person is one aspect that we should be looking at, and we should have a clear understanding of what it is. Yeah. And just to start, what a political exposed person is. A political exposed person is a term used in describing someone who has been entrusted with a prominent public function. Yeah, a political exposed person can also be someone who's been appointed by a community institution, an international body, or state. This including in the UK, the US, or wherever country you find yourself. Yeah, under the anti-money laundering regulation, the main aim for scrutinizing or identifying a PEP is to mitigate the risk of bribery and corruption, because that then translates into money laundering. Yeah, and I'll give you some example in a minute. Now, a PEP generally presents a higher risk for potential involvement in bribery and corruption by virtue of their position and the influence that they may hold. So if only an individual can be regarded as a PEP, an entity cannot. So what I mean by an entity, a company cannot be regarded as a PEP. Only human beings can be regarded as a PEP, because it is politically exposed person is described as someone who's been entrusted with a prominent function. As part of identification and verification, KYC, it's important that when a customer, you're onboarding a customer, you should identify if that person is a politically exposed person or not, because that actually presents a higher risk than your normal customer. Yeah. There's something called RCA as well. RCA stands for relative and close associate of a PEP. Yeah, they carry the same risk as the PEP themselves. So the relative and the close associate of a PEP also carries the same risk as the PEP itself. I will explain in a minute. Identifying a PEP is very important. Yeah. And understanding. An example of a PEP is we have the president, we have ministers, we have head of states, we have queens, kings, sultan priests, we have government officials, consular, ambassador, we have head of state, head of government and ministries, including deputy or assistant ministers. We have members of parliament or similar legislative bodies. We have senior officials of major political parties. We have senior judiciary officials. We have ambassador, high-ranking armed force officials. We have members of ruling royal families with governance responsibilities, with etc. And it goes on and on. Yeah. People also identify. It's really important to also identify relative and close associates, and this includes an example: a spouse of a PEP would be regarded as a politically exposed person, including a person who is considered by national law to be equivalent to a spouse, a partner, children of a PEP they're under the RCA, and their spouse of the children or partners. The siblings are also, the siblings of a PEP will be regarded as a PEP. Parents, including in-laws, where this can be ascertained, they'll be regarded as a PEP. Now, relative and close associate literally means relative and close associate, including individuals closely connected to a PEP, either socially or professionally. Employees of a PEP will generally not be considered as a PEP by association. The employee is unlikely to meet the criteria of an associated person. I would explain further on this RCA because it's important that I drive home the point. It's important to take a risk-based approach. What I mean a risk-based approach, to go further, to analyze, to identify whether the customer is a PEP or not, because the situation which might suggest that a customer is a PEP might include receiving funds in retainers from government accounts. Maybe they're receiving communication on official letter headed maybe we're receiving communication from the on letter headed from the customer itself, or general conversation with the customer or person related to retainer, which links an individual to a PEP. News reports as well, you're screening, checking news online. If the news says this person is a minister or this person has been a minister, that's an indicator that that individual is a PEP. Yeah. So why is it important to identify a PEP? Let me give you an origin of a PEP. Maybe then we can understand. The term of PEP can be traced as way back to an info. Hi.
Sorry, just a quick little clarification.
Yeah.
Regarding the PEP, what about the RCA? If there's like a negative news regarding the RCA, not the PEP himself, how do you do that?
So if there is a negative news, so we have to first of all establish, is the RCA our customer? So if the RCA is our customer, there's negative news here, then add to the assessment of the RCA, because an RCA would always be treated as a PEP. So the way we treat a PEP is the same way we treat an RCA. If there's an adverse news on the RCA, then that actually impacts the risk profile of the customer. So it will now be a case of, is the RCA our customer? If the RCA is not our customer, then no, it does not impact, because we're more concerned about our customer, but the influence of the PEP association or the PEP position is how we will assess it. I will talk about that in a minute so you understand that further. I know you're really moving. Yeah, it's good that you're moving faster. That's good. Okay. And I will talk about why it's important to identify a PEP and the origin of a PEP. PEP has been around for a while, but it became more of a thing. It can be traced back to the roots to an infamous Nigerian dictator called Sani Abacha, and his alleged organized looting of the Nigerian Central Bank in the late 1990s. Yeah, the concept of a PEP could have been set to come out as an investigation of General Sani Abacha. Just to give you a bit of fact check, yeah. The late Sani Abacha, on one of his biography, was regarded as a very brutal Nigerian dictatorship, accused of numerous human rights violations, yeah, and it's alleged by the Nigerian government to have looted over 3 billion from the country. That's more than that now, a lot of billions, yeah. This massive amount here was as a product of corrupt payments, and this includes, and not limited to, a lot of transfer directly and indirectly from Nigerian Central Bank. He was transferring funds from Nigerian banks directly during his regime between 1993 and his death, I think, in 1998. Whilst he was alive, his opponents and his critics were either executed or imprisoned. Now, he has a lot of money that was actually transferred, looted from, and already from the Nigerian economy, and these funds actually found his way to Switzerland, France, Luxembourg, London. And bear in mind that Abacha has a military training in England, by the way, and it's hardly a great, it wasn't a surprise that even London was a very favored destination for him to launder his money. Now, if we look at this whole Abacha case, and from the narrative that I've just said, it might be a thing that, you know, a lot of banks, we expect a lot of banks to actually even not just monitor Abacha, but now that Abacha is passed away, even to have a closer look on the family as well. Yeah. And just to give you more context on this same Abacha, I just want to use this Abacha's case as a case study, so I can drive home the point. Then we'll talk about further part of this PEP. One of the ultimate discovery was identified in 2014, where it's been delayed in court for so long, challenges, but you know, they then realized that his son Mohammed was actually laundering money as well. So his father was laundering money through his son, and it happened to be that Mohammed actually has an account, multiple accounts in the United Kingdom. Yeah. A bank. One of the case study of Mohammed is a bank first contacts with a potential client, which is Mohammed, and they fail to verify his legal name and any other previous name that he might have, including a middle name. His full address was not really verified. His date of birth, places, they verified some of it. His occupation was not verified that much, including names of his employers. Nothing was really verified. They verified some of this information. Some of this information was not verified. They didn't have a closer look and understanding the kind of risk that this individual poses. At the point where it was almost too late, standard due diligence was not conducted. It didn't reveal that Mohammed was even the son of Sani Abacha. And Mohammed Abacha was not an ordinary customer, but rather the son of the General Sani Abacha, according to the bank relationship manager at the time. Now, one point is Mohammed was receiving as much as 260 million naira. Even it was receiving almost £1 million, £2 million, £5 million into his account in the United Kingdom. And his job, that's the purpose of the relationship, his job says he earns $30,000 US per year. Now, that doesn't make up to the KYC profile. If an individual says his income is 30,000, and in such case, the bank have not clearly flagged up deposit and carry out an enhanced due diligence. There's no explanation on the purpose of the transaction. Information on the source of funds was not established. For example, that the money is from an inheritance, or is it from divorce, is it from settlement or property of sales? The bank did not consider whether additional evidence backing up the customer's claim was. They didn't identify that. They didn't verify that. Like it could be a copy of the will, it could be a copy of the deed assessment, something to show that this fund is indeed in alignment with what we understand this customer to be. So you can see that not identifying a PEP in itself is as bad as not even having information about the customer as well. So let me just move further so we don't really dwell too much on the case study, but I would also give you more explanation in a minute. Now let's take a PEP assessment. Now, to fully understand a PEP, it's important that you must first of all identify the PEP. Now, what do I mean by identifying a PEP? Now, if the position of the individual, say you're doing your screening or you're doing your search using the tool in the bank to search for who this individual is, and there's an indicator that says individual is an executive director of a company or board member which is owned by a government, blah blah blah. At that point, you first of all need to identify, is this individual a PEP or not? Now, remember, a PEP is a politically exposed person or a relative and close associate of a PEP. So there are two ways in which the person can be. First of all, you need to identify the role and the responsibility of the individual, and you need to identify in what capacity. Now, if you identify the PEP, then you need to identify the impact of the PEP to the bank. Yeah, and that assessment is called a PEP risk assessment. Yeah, so they are just a simple two-step, and I will explain that in subsequent slides before the end of the 5 days, because we will run a real life case. So we have, you first of all identify this individual I am dealing with. Is this individual PEP? How do I know it's a PEP? The role, does the role fall under the definition of a PEP? Yes, you tick it, yes. Then once you've identified that this individual is a PEP, then what is the impact of this individual on the bank or on the company? So I'll explain that in a minute. Now, PEP and RCA relationship should be assessed at the point of onboarding and subsequent periodic and event-driven review. Remember, I said there are three ways in which you can review a customer. You can either review them at the onboarding stage, or whenever there's a periodic review, or when there's an event. Yeah. When an individual, a customer, that's individual human being, a customer, they're a UBO or significant controller. For some of us who do not understand what a UBO is, we'll talk about that very soon. A UBO is ultimate beneficiary owner or significant controller, is identified as a PEP. The relationship to the bank or the relationship to the organization will be classified as a PEP. Now, let's take a PEP assessment. We'll take a PEP assessment. Please feel free to unmute yourself because we just want to have a bit of discussion. You will mute yourself when you want to speak, then you mute yourself so that there's not too much clash. Yeah, so let's try medium. Yeah, okay. Now, James is a chairman of a private security and military tech firm in the UK. My question to you, is James a PEP? Yes or no? Please feel free to unmute yourself. Just give me an answer. It doesn't have to be accurate so we can discuss. At least I know that people are on the call. So James is the chairman of a private security and military tech firm in the UK. Is James a PEP? Yes or no?
No.
And why did you say he's not a PEP? Hello? Hello?
Yeah, James is not a pet because he's not functioning in a government role. He's just a government contractor. So it's not a pet.
All right. Now that that is you identifying it. First of all, you need to first of all identify. You're saying he's not a PEP, but I'm saying he's a PEP. Why? I'll explain in a minute. Although this example is an employee of a private organization, yeah? Now, FATF, we talked about FATF yesterday, that you need to go and read it a little bit. FATF guidance on recommendation 12 and 22 takes into account those who perform a prominent public function in sectors known to be exposed to a level of corruption, such as oil and gas, mining, sports, construction, natural resources, and defense industry, would be regarded as a PEP. Now, let's look at this as an assessment. First of all, you need to first of all identify, is this individual a PEP or is this individual is not a PEP? The reason why we identify this individual as a PEP is James is a chairman of a private organization, yeah, but the position that James holds here, all of the customer of this private security are military, and military is the government. So if we try to analyze that, we're saying he has a prominent public function in a sector that is only governmental. A military tech company that provides a private security that provides military tech services would not have a civilian as a customer. So a customer would not patronize military services. Yeah. What does that mean? Now let's look at the bank KYC profile. Let's assume this is the profile that the bank has on James. Now the bank says, well, we have a profile of James. James' residence is in the United Kingdom. His tax country is United Kingdom. His nationality is Morocco. His occupation is the chairman of a private security firm. Hold mail, no. Sanctions, no. Transaction activity is consistent with his transaction. Adverse media, yes. Why? He was involved in a bribery scandal involving sales of military equipment in 2006. His source of wealth is inheritance from Morocco and the UK employment. His source of fund is employment in the UK. Now, what is James' relationship with the bank? James is the chairman of OCS Security Company, UK. OCS is majorly owned by diverse individuals with no one owning more than 5% in share capital or voting rights. OCS maintains a current account and loan facility with the bank. So James himself is not the bank's customer. James is only the chairman of the bank's customer. I don't know if that makes sense. Now, in that case, first of all, we've identified that James is a PEP, but his impact on the cost on the bank is not. It doesn't have a significant impact because we don't have a direct relationship with the bank, and James is not a UBO, neither is he a significant controller. In that case, it's not. Another question is this. I know that was a tricky one. That's why I use the medium assessment. So let's try this one. Dame Maggie is a former judge for Her Majesty High Court of Justice in England and Wales. She presided over the Chancery Division dealing with business and property-related disputes. Dame Maggie retired in June 2018. Is Maggie a PEP or not? Anyone?
Yeah, she's a PEP.
And why did you say that?
because she's still a person of influence. She presided over the Chancery Division, and I'm sure she dealing with business and property disputes, which means she'll have a network of people who are influential.
Absolutely, very true. She is a pet. However, there's also a very tweak, and the reason why I'm actually making this a bit tricky is because I understand that we are actually getting it right at the identification, but now when we look deeper into it, we are not looking closer. Now I'll give you another reason. Yeah, go on.
Okay, yeah, because I'm trying to say, I mean, I think there's something on statute that says after a year, something, provided it's not a president or a prime minister, after a year, they loses that, I mean, that status of a PEP seems to elapse after a year from leaving office.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. So the first person who actually spoke, you're absolutely right in that, identifying that yes, this individual is a PEP, but now there is a law that says after 12 months, if the person has leave that position after 12 months, they cease to be a PEP. Yeah. So in that case, a senior member of the judiciary holds authority. That's why I said the first person who answered is absolutely right. But there's a caveat. A senior member of judiciary holds authority and influence over civil society and are classified as a PEP. Yeah. However, those who have left office for over 12 months or until it is deemed that the person does not pose further risk are no longer classed as PEPs. Yes, this individual is a PEP, but the law then says if this individual have left office for over 12 months, then they cease to be a PEP. Now, let's see if this person, because the caveat actually says, and this is one thing I keep saying about regulations. Regulations keep changing, and that's why you would always have a job, because what one person knows yesterday might not really be that too relevant now, because the regulation might have changed from yesterday. So I can categorically tell you that the way we view sanctions in the UK will change in the next 12 to 18 months. Why? Because now there's Brexit, which means the framework I showed you yesterday, we're not totally under EU anymore. So we can now make our own, we can place sanction as UK and not as EU, and as well as we can create our own framework by ourselves and our sanction regime. Okay, now let's focus on this. Now let's look at the KYC profile, the bank's KYC profile. The bank has information on this, on Maggie, to say, yes, she's a resident of the UK, her tax country is United Kingdom, nationality is London, United Kingdom, occupation is retired, she's retired, old mail, no, sanctions, no, transactional account is consistent, adverse media, no, source of wealth, she got a source of wealth from divorce and employment in the UK, a source of fund where she's getting her money from is from pension and employment in the UK. What is our relationship with the bank? Maggie owns 40% of Gallop Oil Limited, Qatar. Gallop Oil maintains a current account and loan facility with the bank, which make Maggie, although we've identified Maggie as a PEP, but then the 12 months, then the PEP her, and the regulation says those who have left off for 12 months or until it is deemed that the person does not pose further risk. In this case, we can't see any risk that Maggie is posing. Number one, she doesn't have any adverse news. Number two, no sanction match on her, no fraud issue, no problem. She's just a normal human being who worked as a former judge, and she's left after 12 months, so she would not be regarded as a PEP, even though identification means it's a PEP. So let me just go back so that you can actually understand that. And please, you can go back and watch this video again. First of all, you need to identify this person a PEP or not. Then you assess the impact of the PEP. Then that creates a PEP assessment, and that is what we're doing. So you first of all identify this individual PEP, yeah, and what is the impact when you look at the profile, yeah. So another one is this, yeah. Now let's look at this guy, and it's very interesting that when we actually look at views like this, and we need to actually go more and read the regulations more so that we can actually understand better. But PEP, the position, absolutely, the first person that spoke is absolutely spot on. She's a PEP, at least she was a PEP. See, the regulation then says 12 months. Yeah. Adam is an ambitious political strategist and special advisor. He was recently appointed as chief of staff to the leader of a European nation. Is Adam a PEP? Yes or no? Anyone? Anyone willing to take on this one?
Yes, Adams is a PEP.
Yeah. Why do you think Adam is a PEP?
One, it has a political ambition. Outside of that, it was recently appointed. When you've been appointed, that's a political appointment. As a chief, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, brilliant. Yes, you're absolutely right. Spot on. Adam is a PEP, but then let's look at his profile and its impact. Now we've identified. Now let's look at the impact. Now, this example has been appointed as an executive office with access to a head of state and therefore can influence decision makers and control resources. Now, let's look at his occupation. The bank has profile of this individual. The bank says, yeah, his residence is Turkey, his nationality is Sudan, his occupation is special advisor, old mail, no, sanctions, no, transactional account is consistent, activity is consistent, adverse media, no, source of wealth is from his career and employment, source of fund is from his employment. What is his relationship with the bank? His relationship with the bank is a current account holder. Yes, he's a PEP and he has a lot of impact on the bank because he's a direct PEP. He's controlling his account. So yes, if you identify him as a PEP, you would definitely make this a higher risk. Yeah, brilliant. Any question on that? Please feel free to ask any question. Maybe it's not on, maybe it's on the information. You want to know why, what all this means, if you want to pick it up. But we're going to talk about what source of fund means, source of wealth means, sanctions at some point. Then we'll talk about that. But if you want to know something else, just please let me know. Yeah. Okay. Let's look at the fourth guy. Now, Mark Maddenson. Mark is a professional footballer. Yeah. His father-in-law is the current general secretary of a continental governing body for association football. Is Mark a PEP? Yes or no? Anyone wants to take on this one? Anyone? So when we say general secretary of a continental, maybe for some of the guys in the call, the ladies, like me to like, yeah, go on, please.
Yeah, it's a PEP.
Why?
Well, you can categorize Mark as an RCA.
Absolutely. Yes, he's a PEP. Thank you very much for that. Okay, let's look at the impact. Now we identify him as a PEP. Yes, Mark is a PEP. Everyone agrees, PEP, PEP, PEP. Now let's look at the impact. Now, first of all, the FATF recommendation, show off in 22, has been expanded to include individual of high status in international sports committee. As a son-in-law, this example will be regarded as a family member of a PEP and therefore is also a PEP. Now, the bank KYC profile says this individual residence is Turkey, his nationality is Turkey, his occupation is professional footballer, hood mail, no, sanction, no, transactional activities is consistent, adverse news, yes, he was involved in bribery in 2018. Source of wealth, career, source of fund, employment, relationship with the bank, he has a joint current account holder with his wife, Miriam Madison, who is also a PEP. Sorry, that's a typo. She's also a PEP because she's the daughter of PEP, so she's also a PEP. So yes, it is definitely a PEP. Yeah, and it should be rated a high and enhanced due diligence should be conducted. Yeah. Okay. Now let me go back to preventing money laundering and how PEP actually poses this. The failure for an institution to adequately identify a PEP during customer onboarding or periodic review could mean that corrupt political figures could evade the detection by enhanced due diligence or ongoing monitoring. Yeah, there have to be effective control, and that's down to the KYC analyst and the screening analyst and the PEP analyst to detect instances when there is unlikable situations happening around the customer profile. So it's not just enough to just say yes, it's a PEP, no, it's not a PEP. Yes, it's a PEP. Identification is very important, and then you assess the impact of it on the bank. So that way, you're not just a normal KYC analyst that just identify. You identify a PEP, and as well as you go further to assess the impact on the bank. So it's more valuable, yeah, as an assessment. Okay, So I'm just going to skim through this because this is for later. Now, is this a PEP or not? Is this individual a PEP or not? I'm not going to give you commentary. I'm just going to give you pictures. Is this individual a PEP or not? Anyone wants to take on it?
Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. What about this guy?
He's a
Yes.
PEP.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, he's a PEP. What about this guy?
Yes.
He's a PEP.
Yeah.
Brilliant. What about this lady?
Yes.
No.
No, she's not a PEP. That's Shakira. What about this guy?
Yes.
Yeah, he's a PEP. He would, what about this lady? So I'm using more of identification now rather than assessment.
No.
No, she's not. Very fast. So what about this guy?
Yes.
Although they're
No.
linked. Yeah, it's not PEP. Brilliant.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it's not. Any questions so far on PEP before I go into due diligence? Any question?
What does hold mail?
Old mail.
Yeah.
That's an interesting one. Now, so sometimes customer might not be able to receive, you know, the way bank actually sends you your bank statement.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if bank actually send you your bank statement, it means that they have an information of where you live and you can receive information. It's more of a way of the bank confirming that you live in the address where you live. And that's why some institution request for your utility bill, because that is proof that you live there. For them to have sent those information and you receive it means that you verify that you live in that address. But what old mail literally means is you're asking the bank to hold the mail for you because you cannot receive letter where you are. So it's more of, it poses more risk because the bank will not be able to send you what's it called? They won't be able to send you mail to your box, which they won't be able to verify your address, and that's the risk in itself. There are reasons why customer might require an old mail by the bank. An example would be, say you're in a jurisdiction, say for example Syria, there's a failed state or war going on. Maybe you don't have an address, no postman will post a letter to you, nothing is going to happen. So you request the bank to old mail. So they hold everything on the site, they don't send any information out. But now the world is changing. We now have electronic versions and all the stuff. So that's what old mail literally means. It poses a higher risk. Yeah. I don't know if that makes sense. Yeah?
Yeah, it does. Thanks.
All right. Any other question, please? Before I move on, any other question? No? Okay. Now let's talk about due diligence. Yeah? What is due diligence? What is due diligence? Well, due diligence is literally finding out information about something, doing further check about something, is talking about the who, the what, the where, when, why, how, questions and answers. Yeah. In KYC, there are 3 levels of due diligence. Yeah. 3 major levels of due diligence. There is something we call the CDD. There is something we call the SDD, and we call the EDD. SDD stands for Simplified Due Diligence. Yeah. The CDD stands for Customer Due Diligence, which is the baseline, and we have EDD, which stands for Enhanced Due Diligence. Yeah. So now, if I should go deeper, due diligence could also be likened to an investigation or to exercise basic information to know more about an individual, to know more about a person before you go into agreement with that person, yeah, or that business. Now, these 3 levels of due diligence: SDD, Simplified Due Diligence; CDD, Customer Due Diligence; and EDD, Enhanced Due Diligence. SDD is regarded as a lower risk kind of due diligence. CDD is regarded as a medium or standard risk kind of due diligence. EDD means we have to do high risk, it poses a high risk due diligence. Yeah. Now let's talk about simplified. Simplified due diligence literally means is a phrase that was used in the 2007 and 2017 regulation, which means that a business is not required to apply standard customer due diligence measure laid out in Regulation 7, where the business has reasonable ground, for believing that a customer or client, fall into a specific category. Yeah, and this could be corporate business customer who satisfy a robust external standard, such as, for example, our customer is regulated by a recognized regulator. They have their shares listed on a recognized stock exchange. They are not a high risk customer by their nature. There's some criteria that will show that this customer poses literally almost no risk. Yeah, LTD means that the bank can, subject to verifying the record of external bodies, apply a lighter touch to CDD and does not need to verify the identity of the director of the company and controllers of the business, nor does the bank have to obtain information on the purpose of intended nature of the business, of the business relationship or occasional transaction. But ultimate beneficiary owners still need to be identified as part of the new regulation. Yeah. Now let's talk about customer due diligence, which is the next level higher than simplified due diligence. You can see the folder is small. So in accordance with the Money Laundering Regulation 2017, Section 5, CDD is described as identifying the customer and verifying customer's identity on the basis of document, data, or information obtained from a reliable and independent source. Now, identifying where there is a beneficiary owner or ultimate controller, significant controller, who is not the customer, the beneficiary owner, and taking adequate measure on a risk-sensitive basis to verify his identity, so that the relevant person is satisfied that he knows who the beneficiary owner is, including the case of a legal person. So whenever they say a legal person, it means an entity, a trust, or similar legal arrangement. Measures to understand the ownership and control structure of the person. I know this all sounds for you guys that are quite new to this, it sounds like gibbish, but I promise you, I'm going to talk about this, and all this terminology, beneficiary owner, trust, all this is going to make sense in a minute. The third one is obtaining information on the purpose and intended nature of the business relationship. Now, when we talk about enhanced due diligence, it's a different level. The enhanced due diligence means you understand the customer, but now you're taking a very higher approach, understanding the customer even further. Now, this means that the bank must apply EDD, enhanced due diligence measures, on a recent basis in any situation by its nature, which can present a higher risk of money laundering or terrorist financing. So if you identify a customer is a PEP, you need to conduct enhanced due diligence. It's a must, yeah, by regulation. As part of this, the bank concludes under its risk-based approach that the information which has been collected as part of the CDD process is insufficient in relation to the money laundering and terrorist financing risk, and that it must obtain additional information about a particular customer, the customer beneficiary owner, where applicable, and the purpose and intended nature of the business relationship. Yeah. Okay. Any question before we start talking about each KYC requirements? Now, on the calculator has different requirements. Now, that is what we want to discuss. We want to discuss why you need to identify a name, verify a name, why address is important, why we need to get this information or get that information. So I'm just going to give you a 5-minute break. Please grab your tea, coffee, and we would get back in 5 minutes. So I'll be with you in 5 minutes. Yeah, 5-minute break, please. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Are we back? Hi, guys.
Yeah, I'm back.
Alrighty. I think I am going to kick off. So I'm going to unmute Ife, and you can please mute yourself. Brilliant. Okay. All right. I'm just going to kick off now. So let's talk about major KYC requirements. And this major KYC requirement. Hello. So these major KYC requirements are the assessments that we would check for each customer. These are the minimum standard. And this also exists in the calculator that you have. There are basic information that is a must that you must verify. So when you identify them, you must verify them. So in the KYC requirements, we talk about the legal name, we talk about address, we talk about legal form, we talk about formation documents, we talk about NAICS code, nature of the business, source of fund, ownership, source of wealth, legal representative, bearer shares, offshore, and so on, share banks. Now let's talk about legal name. Why is legal name important? Why do we have to identify a legal name and verify a legal name? It's important we have to verify a legal name because a legal name is the name that identifies a person for legal, administrative, and other official purposes. Yeah, a legal name should be verified using valid documents, as this creates assurance that the entity or the individual has not changed name. Yeah, e.g., now I'll be focusing more on entity type kind of customer. Say, and I'll be referring it to person as well, individuals, because a customer can either be an individual or an entity. Majority in investment bank usually an entity, but you could also have individual and a private bank in wealth management as well. Yeah. So a legal name should be verified. Either as an individual or a customer basically has to be verified. The legal name has to be verified using valid document, as this creates assurance that the entity or individual has not changed name. E.g., in case of a merger, acquisition, etc., to avoid missing out information during NLS. NLS means name list screening, when you screen a customer. If my name is Olu today, maybe I change my name or maybe in Africa, they call me Lumzi, as a nickname, but that's what they know me as, and I'm very radical. Whenever there's an adverse news about me, they will say stuff like Lumzi was arrested by the police, blah, blah, blah. But if I come to the UK and actually have a fresh start, if you're searching Olu and you don't know that my AK is also Lumzi, you would not connect Lumzi to me. So it's important that you actually identify and verify names, also identify other names. So this individual is known as, was born John Roger Stevens. A lot of people don't know that. John Legend is a nickname that some friends started calling him, and it kind of grew into his stage name. So if I conduct a screen on John Roger Stevens, I might not see too much information, but if I conduct an information on John Legend, I might see a lot of information. Now, it's very important that we find out and verify his name on his passport, which would be John Roger Stevens. However, the AKA has to be identified as well, which is John Legend. So on the form, that's why you see on the form when you open an account, they ask you like, what is your full name? What were you previously known as? And what are your nicknames or AKAs? It's important that we capture that information as much as we can. For example, HSBC. HSBC is the Birmingham and Midland, is the Midland Bank, was established by Charles Gage in Union Street in the city of Birmingham on 22nd August 1836. In 1999, the Midland Bank name was replaced, creating a clear and consistent identity to HSBC, officially known as the Hong Kong and Shanghai Banking Corporation. If you're actually carrying out a screening or you're carrying out a due diligence on this, if you find out, if you don't know that if you don't know the previous name is Midland Bank, any news from Midland Bank, you would not connect it to your customer, but not knowing that actually create a gap in your KYC profile. So it's important as much as possible to identify as much information as possible but the full legal name has to be verified using documents. So in the case of an individual, if you go into your IDNV, you see name, legal name verification. You can map it out. I explained how to use your IDNV matrix yesterday. You look at your IDNV matrix, look for a document that you can use to verify an entity, or document you can use to verify an individual. In an individual, you can use license, passport documents, date of birth, birth certificate, or whatever. For entity, you can use commercial register, you can use trust deed annual report, audited annual reports, you can use regulatory extracts. There's a lot of documents you can use for that. Now, address. Why is it important to identify or verify an address? For an entity, there is the address called a primary address. Primary address literally means this is where the customer is carrying out their activities, also known as principal place of business. A registered address could be different from the primary address. For example, Apple could be registered in Ireland, but they're operating in London or operating in the UK, in California or China. We have trading address as well, and it's important that all these addresses are really established. Why? Because I'll explain in the subsequent slide. I don't want to dwell on this too much. Now, what is a legal form? Now, all these terminologies and all this assessment is already, for some of you that have received our training pack, part 1, there is a document and materials in there that you can read as much as possible. It's very detailed. It talks about legal form, address, why and what you need, why you need them, and you can also watch some of our previous videos as well that will be uploaded. So legal form, when you start a business, you must decide on a legal structure for it. Usually you would choose either a sole proprietorship, a partnership, a limited liability company, or corporation. Again, what document you need to verify legal form is on your IDNV. So there are a lot of documents you can use, and there's a lot of documents that you can't use. Yeah, please go to the IDNV and use that. Also check your customer risk assessment calculator. So all the drop down has a lot of options that you can pick up, but you need to know what it is before you pick it up, which means that there's a level of due diligence that needs to be conducted before you can choose one option to know that it's actually accurate. Formation documents are documents that actually proves that your customer is established or they were created. That's just there. This is a document that evidences establishment of an entity. An example will be certificate of corporation or equivalent. Yeah. Next code. I'm moving really fast because of time. I'm trying to close much more earlier today because so that I can actually cover more of the. I want to merge like one of the sessions tomorrow. Next code and SIC. Next codes are a pan-European classification system which group organization according to their business activity. The appropriate code must be directly sourced from a customer's documents or selected based on the customer identified principal activity. So let's take, for example, every business has a code. For example, you have manufacturer of goods. For example, their code is 10. Manufacturer of beverage, their code is 11. Manufacturer of tobacco, their code is 13. So we should not have we should not have a company that says they produce leather, yeah, but on their documents, their code is 11, which means there is a problem with what the customer is saying, yeah. So it's just to give us a further assurance on the nature of the business, what the customer deals with, yeah, and that actually spans true. Now let's talk about nature of the business. Now we're getting more into the detail. Now, what is nature of the business, and what does this mean? If a customer is selling, if the customer have a coffee shop, the nature of the business is coffee shop. Means they actually serve coffee shop. They might serve a bit of cake and sandwich, or you're a tailor, or you're a gardener, or your salon is an activity. So the nature of the business of a customer needs to be understood and established. The nature of the business might include description of the nature of the operation, e.g. multinational bank, is getting into agriculture, is into forestry, is into fishery or construction. Without this information, your customer would not be adequate, because for you to understand the type of transaction you expect, it must be consistent with the nature of the business of the customer. Why would a customer tell me, or occupation, for example, why would a customer tell me they let me give you an example. They're into contracts, building contracts, and every day in the business account we keep getting £400, £300, £500 in multiples, high volume transaction coming into the account. That makes absolutely no sense to me, because if the customer says they're into constructing and they win awards, construction award, we don't expect, their business is not like a coffee shop. They receive £10, £20, £50 into the account. So having an understanding of the nature of the business kind of give you an understanding and help the transaction monitoring team to have an assessment, to have enough information to assess the customer. And that has to be consistent with the purpose of the relationship. Now, if you're saying you're a coffee shop, why do you need a corresponding banking account as the purpose of the relationship? Or if you're saying you're a construction firm, why do you need a corresponding account, for example? Why do you need a loan account, or whatever? There have to be a clear rationale, and it has to be consistent. It has to make sense why you need that account, because it has to be consistent with your nature and the purpose of your relationship. Yeah. Now, the scale and jurisdiction of operation is very important as well in establishing your nature of the business, and I'll explain that in a minute. The brand history and the reputation. What that means is, as part of understanding the customer nature of the business, the brand history and the reputation is also important, because the brand history can tell you how the business started, what they were doing. There might be a merger or acquisition, what name they were called before, and what part of, it just gives you a bit of understanding of how the business, so you can actually create your own assessment. Yeah. So source of fund. What is source of fund? Source of fund is where you're currently getting the money from. Yeah. And what does that mean? Let me explain this. Let's assume there's a company called Hale Shoes. Let's call it HS Holdings, and they're in the UK, for example. Because this is made up. Yeah. If they decide to open a branch in the US, let's say for some reason they want to access the US market, because the US has one of the biggest market as well, and they will also open another branch in China, maybe because there's cheaper labor, and they also want to access the market. If they open a branch in Nigeria, maybe they open a branch in Nigeria to access, because they sell shoes, correct? Maybe to get cheaper leather, and that's why they're going into Nigeria. Maybe they open another one in Paris. Why? Maybe for fashion show, to help their brand and push, they have their, what's it called, their research company or whatever there. If they open in Denmark, for whatever reason they open Denmark, I don't know, it's just a made up. Say they have another one in Italy, and in Italy, say they open it for brand association. The moment they actually, because they have a flagship shop in Italy, wherever they actually create the shoe, maybe in China, they use Nigerian leather, they use Paris idea, they just put made in Italy. So it gives the shoe a better branding and makes it more credible. And in India, maybe they actually have a customer service center in India, because maybe cheaper labor, and they have in Singapore, whatever reason they have Singapore, I don't know. Yeah. So now they have all these branches and subsidiaries in different locations. As part of understanding the scale of operation of this customer, it's important to understand the countries. Remember, when we talked about the 4 risk factor of KYC, one of it is geography. Now, in here, the customer operates, the type of customer is, they're a shoe company, they operate in China, Libya. What if they're actually operating in Libya? What if they're operating in Syria? That means they're getting some of their source of fund from that country, which actually poses a higher risk from that jurisdiction. They could have one in Libya, they could have one in Syria, they could have one in Russia. What if there's a sanction in Russia, and the bank policy is we don't deal with customer who has business dealing in Russia because there's a US sanction in there, or we don't deal with customer? That is why it's important to understand the scale of operation, and the scale of operation gives you an indicator of where they're getting their revenue from. where they're getting their fund from is also called source of fund. Now, I'll give you a very clear explanation of that. Now, let's take, for example, we have ABC grocery shop down your road. Now there is isolation, sit in your house. You only patronize grocery store. Now, I might need some of you to unmute. I might need you guys to unmute yourself to just answer some of my questions as I go on, because it's more interactive, this one. This is a grocery shop, and the shop is offering a wide variety of foods, beverages, and household products. They also serve for canned and packaged goods, and for various non-food items such as kitchenwares, household cleaners, pharmacy products, and pet supplies. Now, this ABC grocery shop operates in 4 countries worldwide, including the UK, the US, France, and China. The head office is in the UK with over 1,900 shops worldwide. Now, after 1 year, if we are to ask this customer that, where are you getting your money from after 1 year? Remember, the nature of the business of this business is grocery. This is what they do. This is their business activity. But now we're talking about source of fund. Now, the source of fund is, if I'm selling shirts, if I sell shirts after 1 year, where would I be getting my money from? From shirts. Now, if I'm into groceries, after 1 year, I say on my cash flow statement, my money is coming from our revenue came from fruit, from foodstuff, from household meals, and from delivery of food. Would you say my nature of business activity is the same, is equals to my source of fund? Yes or no? And someone please take that. So I've been explaining about yes. So if you said yes, why is that?
Because it's still in line with groceries. I mean, they sell food, stuff, household meals, and they could deliver them as well.
Absolutely, yes. That's a yes. So yes, the nature of the business is consistent with the source of fund. Thank you very much. So now if we go to year 2, and in year 2 we have the way they got their revenue, their income from is from pet food. They got their income from foodstuff. They also got it from loan and from sales of property. Would you say the nature of the business is equals to source of fund?
No.
No, and why is that?
Because they didn't stick to the nature of business, grocery.
So what would be your concern in this review?
That means they've diverted their funds to property and loan.
Okay, brilliant.
Which could be a concern.
Yeah, so this is definitely no. Yep. What about the third year? Say, for example, if the food stuff is coming from, the income is coming from food stuff, it's coming from delivery, household meals, and meat. Would you say the nature of the business is equal to the source of fund? Anyone?
Yes.
Absolutely. Why? Because it's actually consistent with what they're doing, correct? Yes.
Yeah.
But now that, thank you very much. So you can mute yourself now. Thank you. So now that we've actually established this, the year 1, we've looked at their income statement in the annual report to understand the nature of the business, the statement is consistent with this, and this is what we get in our account. The customer said they got the money from this, they got the money from that, they got the money from this. But we have a concern with year 2, and there was a massive inflow of funds. Let's say the money coming in is like double. Literally, say the customer says, well, we expect close to about 5 million a year, but all of a sudden, there is sales of property and there is loan, and instead of the normal 5 million that we expected, we just realized that we had 38 million in 1 year, and that's not what we understand the customer to be. So we have a concern. We can't just close it. We need to probe it. That's where enhanced due diligence come into play. Enhanced due diligence means that we need to do further check, which means that might mean that we need to go back to the customer to say, can you provide clarification on where this fund is coming from, loan or sales? Why? Because When it comes to money laundering, the easiest way for you to launder money is through small businesses or businesses in this case. Say, for example, I'm the owner of this grocery store, and I have a brother who is a criminal, and he has a stack of money that he has got from proceeds of crime, and he wants to claim the money. I am the best person to claim the money for him. All I have to do is I'll tell him to give me a loan. I'll put the loan in the account and use the loan to, I would clean the money through my business and bring out the money and give him back his money. So what that means is we as a bank, we need to know that that fund or that loan or that sale of property is not coming from proceeds of crime. We need to know where that money is coming from. We used to expect 5 million every year. How come we're having 38 million? That is over 500% increase, and that is significant. So we ask the question, and if the customer provides satisfactory information and documentation to show, then it becomes a yes, and we're satisfied with the source of fund. So understand that nature of the business is the activity, while source of fund is the activity of the nature of the business, and also could also be a one-off transaction, yeah, which requires enhanced due diligence to establish. Yeah. All right. End of day 3 of 5. Any question?